What does it take to do the impossible? What does it take to achieve paradigm-shifting, never-seen-before breakthroughs? Every domain you find ultimate human performance has the exact same signature. It is a state of consciousness known to researchers as flow. Technically defined as an optimal state of consciousness, one where we feel our best and we perform our best. More specifically, it refers to those moments of rapt attention and total absorption. We get so focused on the task at hand, everything else just disappears. Action and awareness will start to merge. Your sense of self will vanish. Time will dilate, which is a fancy way of saying it passes strangely. So sometimes, occasionally, it'll slow down and you get that freeze frame effect from maybe anyone who's been in a car crash. And more frequently, it speeds up. And throughout, all aspects of performance, both mental and physical, go through the roof. And this is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He is often called the godfather of flow psychology, and he ran around the world talking to people saying, hey, tell me about the time in your life when you feel your best, you perform your best. Tens of thousands of people said, you know, when I'm at my best, I'm in this state, and every idea, every action, every decision flows seamlessly, perfectly, effortlessly from the last. So flow is actually a phenomenological description. It's how the state makes us feel. Interestingly, for the state to make us feel flowy, flow has to be as close to near perfect high-speed creative decision-making as we can get. Flow is fundamental. Flow is fundamental to well-being and overall life satisfaction. In fact, the people who score off the charts, highest in the world for overall life satisfaction and well-being, are the people with the most flow in their lives. All right, so this is optimal performance. Great. How optimal? What are we talking about? Turns out, pretty optimal. So McKinsey, the global consultancy, did a 10-year study, and they found that top executives in flow are 5 times more productive than out of flow. 5 times more productive is 500% more productive. Interestingly, 2 days a week in flow, you are 1,000% more productive than the competition. In flow, we're not using more of the brain, we're actually using less of the brain. The technical term for this is transient, meaning temporary, hypofrontality. Hypo is H-Y-P-O, it's the opposite of hyper. It means to slow down, to shut down, to deactivate. And frontality is the prefrontal cortex, right? The part of your brain that's right back here. Now this is an extremely powerful part of your brain. It handles complex, logical decision-making. It handles long-term planning. Your sense of morality comes from here, your sense of willpower. In flow, this portion of the brain shuts down. It's actually an efficiency exchange. The brain is trading energy it needs for attention, and it's shutting down non-critical structures. When it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, all kinds of crazy things happen. Why does time pass so strangely in a flow state, for example? Time, it turns out, is calculated all over the prefrontal cortex. And as parts of it wink out, it can no longer separate past from present from future. We're plunged into a state researchers talk about as the deep now. Now, the deep now has a huge impact on performance. If you think about most of your fears, most of your anxieties, very few of them are in the right here, right now. They're usually horrible things that happened in the past that we'd like to avoid happening again in the present, or they're scary things that might, maybe could happen in the future, right? And we'd like to steer around it. When we end up in the deep now, when time gets shut down in a flow state, anxiety disappears. Your stress hormones flood out of your system. The nervous system actually resets at this point. same thing happens to your sense of self. So self is actually a network. It's a bunch of different structures in the prefrontal cortex that are linked together. And like any network, as parts of it start to wink out, the network collapses. As a result, our sense of self disappears. Again, huge impact on performance. When your sense of self disappears, your inner critic, that nagging, always on, defeatist voice in your head, your inner Woody Allen, in flow, Woody gets silent, right? So we experience this as liberation, as freedom. We are actually getting out of our own way, literally, right? As a result, risk-taking goes up. Creativity, because you're no longer doubting every one of your neat ideas, goes up. And in flow, we get 5 of the most potent neurochemicals that the brain can produce. Now, all 5 of them amplify performance. They boost physical performance. They will do everything from increased strength to deaden pain to amplifying muscle reaction time. More importantly, they impact cognitive function. So besides being performance-enhancing chemicals, the 5 chemicals that show up in flow are pleasure drugs. In fact, they're the 5 most potent pleasure drugs the brain can produce. Flow is the only time it appears that we get all 5 at once, which is why flow is the most addictive state on earth. This is exactly what is available to each and every one of you today. But what you choose to do with this information is entirely up to you. But thanks for listening.